What is up guys, my name is Cosmic, and welcome to my video in which I'll be ranking the difficulty of each of Bloodborne's bosses. Now I may be over 3 years late, but now that I've finally completed multiple playthroughs of Bloodborne using different skill sets, it has very quickly made itself one of my favorite single player experiences. And I thought it would only be fitting to make my own personal boss ranking video. Please keep in mind that this list is my opinion only and is in no way objective. I rank these bosses based on how much trouble they gave me on my first 3 playthroughs. If you had an easier time with these bosses and disagree with any of my rankings, please post it in the comments. I'm always interested to see what other people thought of these bosses. Also keep in mind, I'm not including any of the Chalice Dungeon bosses until I've played through them some more, because I might make a video on them in the future. One more thing before we start, I want to apologize for the varied footage quality throughout this video. All of the footage shown throughout is all my own, and I was using a capture card that was released in early 2013, so it struggled a little bit with some of the more graphically intensive parts. So without further ado, let's start with our number 22 spot, the Witches of HEMWICK. There's honestly not much to say about this fight. You walk into the arena and see the same enemy that you've encountered multiple times coming through HEMWICK Charnel Lake. If you turn around, you will see a glowing red light, and when you get closer to this hideous looking witch will appear. This witch is extremely slow and doesn't actually get access to any attacks until she has half HP. This leaves her extremely vulnerable to visceral attacks that can absolutely devastate her health bar before she teleports away when she takes a certain amount of damage. Once you've killed the first witch, a second health bar appears at the bottom of the screen and you have to find and kill a second one. At this point though, the witches actually have 2 attacks, including a very slow and telegraphed AoE attack that deals a significant amount of damage but is very easily healed due to their painfully slow speed. The witches also get a stun attack similar to those annoying brain suckers throughout the game that will temporarily stun you. If you are hit with this move, the witches will grab you and deal a very large amount of damage. The second witch will also be resurrected if you do not kill the second one fast enough, and this means double the stuns and double the hook monsters. So try to find and kill the second witch quickly before any of this happens, otherwise even the easiest boss in the game can become troublesome. I've actually died to the witches twice on New Game Plus because I just got stun locked to death, but if you manage to do it correctly, this boss could be quite the joke. At number 21, we have the Living Failures, and these guys really do live up to their name. To put it bluntly, these blue blobs just sort of walk around and flail their arms around aimlessly to deal damage. They get a few extra attacks at 50% HP, but they're not really scary at all. When you first walk into this strangely beautiful arena, you're greeted by 3 or 4 walking blue blobs. They're quite slow, not very bulky individually, and have some very well telegraphed attacks. I will give them credit for how much damage they do with melee if you actually do get hit by their massive freaky arms, but this rarely happens, at least for me. They could also put up a little bit of a threat because it's a gank, and naturally it can sometimes be difficult to deal and keep an eye on what the other failures are doing. If you're battling one failure, the others on the other side of the arena are going to be throwing magic at you. Depending on your vitality, a magic bolt and a slam attack will either kill you or seriously damage you. But it's also fairly easy to heal due to the failures being very slow, so if this doesn't kill you, you should be okay. Oh, did I mention the ridiculous spinning flail attack can be parried and reposted? Yeah, you thought they couldn't get any easier. As much as I want to say that the fight gets tougher in the second phase, I really can't. They get this pathetic attack where they raise the roof and summon asteroids, and at first glance this can be quite intimidating, and they do indeed deal a scary amount of damage, but the catch is they only come from the same direction every time. So you can kind of just scoot over to the side of this dead sunflower thing and do gestures until the attack is over and punish while they're recovering. For a second blue alien gank, the Living Failures are even more of a joke for me than the last. I didn't die at all of these on my first playthroughs, unlike the others, but hey, at least these guys have some awesome music. Speaking of blue alien ganks, here's the second one in a number 20 spot, the Celestial Emissary. If you've really explored the Forbidden Woods and or have been to Yusefka's clinic, you've likely seen some of these goobers before. Not too much of a challenge, right? You could say the tentacle electric head ones can be an annoyance at longer ranges or when there's more than one of them, but thankfully the Celestial Emissary is just a large gank of smaller pleb ones. At first you'll notice the health bar is staying completely still, despite dealing damage to the little blue things. You'll notice one little guy in the back though, and you'll notice that hitting this guy in particular makes the health bar go down. So it's just a case of having effective crowd control until the little guy is dead. That is until he reaches 50% HP. This is when he presses Q and turns into this thing. Does he get any scarier? Not really. It's just a larger hitbox for you to hit. I've actually pathetically died to this guy because I normally struggle with ganks and fights with ads, and I got overconfident due to the fact I entered this fight knowing beforehand that they're reputable for being a meme. If they do manage to creep up and hit you with multiple attacks, they can deal a scary amount of damage though, and it can sometimes be difficult to separate them and have effective crowd control due to them being the same speed. I guess this Celestial Emissary can be compared to the Deacons of the Deep from Dark Souls 3 in the sense that if you deal with him somewhat patiently and get the crowd control dealt with, this boss seriously is a joke. But if you let them gang up on you and get still knocked into oblivion, be ready for a quick and embarrassing death. I actually put these guys below the living failures because I die to these and not the failures, but that's because it's a much larger group and I struggle with ads. Number 19, MERGO'S Wet Nurse. I reckon everybody out there is expecting her to be high on this list, but not this high. Yeah, she's very easy. The reason she's so high on this list is for multiple reasons. She's got a large health pool and can be a nuisance when you're not behind her and get some annoying attacks, but every single one of her attacks are locked once she starts using them. They're ridiculously well telegraphed and easy to dodge. She has an attack that means she flails her multiple blades around her body for multiple seconds, which makes it insanely easy to just beat the crap out of her. Her Nightmare phase, though intimidating in appearance or in her first attempt, is a joke. And she's the final compulsory boss before the end game. I know these games aren't renowned for their chronological progression in terms of boss difficulty, and that's okay, but I feel like this fight was a disappointment, especially compared to the DLC that you'll most likely play before the endgame bosses and right after this boss itself. I will, of course, give credit where credit is due though. If you do get caught out by your attacks or get unlucky during the Nightmare phase, you're probably dead unless you have a lot of health. That's actually how I died to her multiple times in New Game Plus. I have a horrible habit of dodging when the attack's starting rather than the attack actually lands, and Wet Nurse punishes this severely with devastating but slow attacks. But you can really just pop a bolt paper and beast blood plot and hope that you kill her in one cycle. This fight can be somewhat dangerous, but just make sure to dodge her attacks and it's a cakewalk. Seriously. Number 18, MICOLASH, Host of the Nightmare. It actually sucks that this fight is so easy. Call me crazy, but MICOLASH is my favorite boss in the game in terms of lore, and I actually find his appearance quite cool as well. It feels nice fighting something that isn't some sort of beast, but merely a man consumed by the nightmare. MICOLASH has some cool and very strange dialogue, and in my controversial opinion, a cool boss arena. In a first playthrough, the method to getting MICOLASH into an area in which you can actually fight him can be slightly confusing. First, you gotta chase him into walking into a room on the right of the arena, separated by a small vestibule. This does have some RNG involved, but it's never difficult getting there, even since the worst RNG is the intended path anyway. Get him around the corner, then wrap back around and chase him inside. Here you'll find some irritating skeletal mannequin things. I highly recommend dealing with them first and foremost, or using the speedrun strategy of moving MICOLASH into the vestibule I mentioned earlier, where you don't have to deal with any puppets unless you're unlucky and some come in from the main hallway. Even if they do, MICOLASH is very slow and gives you ample time to kill them. He also staggers from pretty much every hit from any weapon that has the capabilities to do so, and in phase 1 he only has one very easy attack to dodge that can parry you and deal a nice amount of damage. Ending his first phase at 50% HP, he'll disappear into misses if you've completely killed him. Head back out into the area that you used to trap him and head through the new door that has been created at the top of the stairs. Chase him through his arena and his mirrors, listen to his dialogue, and eventually you will initiate phase 2 of the fight where he has some more attacks. MICOLASH gets access to a punch attack that really does nothing but push you backwards and do absolutely bare minimal damage, so this is no problem. But he does get access to an attack that you really should worry about. A Cool Beyond is tough to dodge, can be used rapidly if you get unlucky, and will absolutely devastate your health bar. You can get hit by this attack, survive on barely any HP, and he decides he wants to use it again. You're pretty much dead. I actually died 5 times to MICOLASH on my very first playthrough. First time by actually just straight up taking it off the map, one time by taking an unanticipated amount of damage from one of his puppets, and 3 times just getting one-shot or heal baited by his A Cool Beyond attack. Manage your stamina carefully during phase 2 though, and MICOLASH really is a pushover. Number 17, Cleric Beast. This boss is optional, but if you follow the natural pattern of Bloodborne, this is likely the first posture you will ever encounter. Located at the end of a grand bridge in YHARNAM, this boss makes a sudden appearance when it jumps over the gate and lands in front of you, and can be very intimidating for a first boss. But you really shouldn't worry that much. This beast's attack are very well telegraphed, and he frequently just stands still to do a roar that doesn't even heal him. Just follow the golden rule of Soulsborne and stick to that back end, dodging and taking advantage of his large attack and healing windows, and you'll down this beast very quickly. There isn't very much to say other than to warn you to be careful when he jumps backwards. If you do get hit by his attacks, your probably low health pool means you will definitely need to heal. If you don't manage to get back behind him, be very careful for his attacks while you do heal. This is the one time it becomes a problem though. Now just come back after MICOLASH and kill Cleric Beast with a +10 weapon. He won't even use half of your stamina. Number 16, Moon Presence. The secret final boss of Bloodborne is quite the pushover. It's generic, easy to dodge, disgusting looking, and lackluster. Going through the lower cathedral ward to get 1/3 of the umbilical cord posed more of a challenge than this guy did. It's basically just like a cleric beast on 4 legs and has a little more speed. He does have an attack that deals all but 1 of your HP, but he takes an absolutely absurd amount of time to recover after using it, giving you plenty of time to charge your beast speeder using transformation attacks, rally, and heal any damage that you just took. Then it's just a case of dodging his well-telegraphed attacks and punishing. That's it, really. Connection that this boss has to Gehrman is pretty cool though, and I like that you have to take multiple detours throughout the playthrough of the game to be able to encounter it at the end. Once again, I will give credit where it's due, and I will say I did actually die to him once on my very first playthrough. Despite only dying 3 times to him, I had a rough time with Gehrman in that fight, and since the game goes straight into the fight with Moon Presence after you've killed him, I had no vials and I died just getting hit by him normally. The Moon Presence does have my favorite scene in all of Bloodborne though. Seeing the silhouette of this looming beast slowly encroach from the backdrop of the blood moon sent chills down my spine, especially when you compare him to the size of your character. But yeah, not too much to redeem this boss other than making sure you're careful when he uses his all but 1 HP attack and that you make sure you are at sufficient HP to survive future attacks after he's finished recovering, and take full advantage of beast blood pellets and rally potential during that recovery. Do all that correctly and you should slay this guy pretty easily. We're now getting to the part of the video where the bosses get somewhat challenging. At number 15 we have VICAR AMELIA. She's a very early game compulsory boss and she's certainly not one you should take lightly. Her massive swinging attacks can deal huge amounts of damage considering your health bar probably isn't the biggest at this part of the game, and can leave you vulnerable to a very quick follow-ups. She's very quick due to the fact that I'm fairly sure she's some sort of wolf, and even if you do follow the golden rule of sticking to that ass, if you don't deal enough damage and stagger, she's probably going to jump away from you and follow up with an attack very quickly. So much so it's difficult to catch back up to her even using dodges. So why is Amelia so high on this list? There's one reason for this. So I didn't actually die to Amelia on my first playthrough at all. In fact, I didn't even get hit by her at all. Reason for this is that fire paper completely trivializes this fight. If you have upgraded your weapon at all and have some fire paper in your character, Amelia is super easy to essentially stun lock. If you go behind her when she taunts you at the beginning of the fight and hit her back legs, you're probably going to have her stagger if you have fire paper and use transformation attacks. Repost and hit her a little more, rinse and repeat. You can even tower a beast blood pellet on top of this to make it even easier. If you don't have either one of these items though, prepare for a serious challenge. Amelia has given me a lot of trouble on repeat playthroughs due to me using the fire paper on the blood-starved beast. She is certainly a challenging fight if you come unprepared, so make sure you try and stock up on resources. You can get 3 pieces of fire paper from Alfred earlier on in the game, so try to use these in the blood-starved beast like I did. Number 14, DARKBEAST PAARL. This fight is in the same lane as VICAR AMELIA in the sense that this fight has criteria to be trivialized, and if you do not have this criteria, the fight can be quite the challenge. The criteria for this fight is an upgraded weapon, fire paper, and beast blood pellets. If you use transformation attacks on his legs, you can very easily stagger him and absolutely destroy him while he's on the ground. If he gets back up, just do it again. He can, however, be very difficult if you do not have the damage to stagger him. I died 1 time on my very first playthrough compared to 6 times in another when I didn't have any items. This boss though, when you cannot stagger him, is less of a threat than the camera is. The slow camera that frequently unlocks from the beast due to him being extremely fast with some unpredictable attacks means that you sometimes will take damage when you don't even know where the beast is. It's also worth mentioning that DARKBEAST PAARL is optional, so if you don't have any resources it is fine to skip him and come back when your weapon is more powerful and when you have necessary resources. Defeating PAARL unlocks a faster way of accessing one of my favorite early game blood echo farming locations, so I like to kill him early. Otherwise I have to run from church at the good challenge instead, which is much longer. So all in all, DARKBEAST PAARL can seriously be a dark beast unless you have the right resources. If you do, stun lock him into oblivion. If you don't, get ready to dodge and battle with the camera. Number 13, Blood-Starved Beast. Ranking this guy is actually pretty difficult. He's basically the same sort of battle as DARKBEAST PAARL, except Skinhead over here is a little bit more dangerous and has some secondary effects on top of just casual melee damage, but is also less dependent on resources. The most ideal way to deal with the beast is to bait him somewhere in his large arena using a blood cocktail, popping fire paper and a beast blood pellet, and using transformation attacks while he's in the corner. This strategy is used in the speedrun and is very effective, even for first time players. If your weapon is at all upgraded, you will deal massive amounts of damage very quickly. So once again, the Bloodstarved Beast is another boss that can be made trivial if you use the right resources. If you do not have the resources necessary to do this, this beast can also be parried, backstabbed, and reposted. The parry timing for this beast can be tough to get the hang of since you need to shoot at the very last second, and if you miss it, you're in for a strong attack. To rub some salt in the wound, the beast will rapidly generate slow poisoning in his second phase. This may not sound like too much of a big of a deal, but the monitoring the poison while making sure you don't take damage from the beast can sometimes be very difficult. I've had slow poisoning and I've underestimated it, and I've proceeded to get one shot by the beast because I was so low on health. Even if you do stock up on antidotes, the poison charges so quickly you probably just have to use another as soon as you've cured yourself and started attacking him again. Another thing to watch out for is the beast's weird visuals when he reaches the side of the arena. He frequently looks as if he's clipping through the wall, and it can sometimes make it difficult to identify when he's about to attack. The first phase can still be pretty easy when you don't have the resources though. Just wait for it to attack, dodge and strafe left, and punish. Just watch out for the poison I mentioned earlier in phase 2. It's pretty obvious when he transforms. He just sort of sits there and screams, but explodes into poison at around 50% HP. I've died multiple times to this guy in repeat playthroughs, despite only dying to once on my first, but I've never died in his first phase, ever. Punish him whenever you can, use resources available to you, and take the advantage of parrying. The Bloodstarved Beast will be dead in no time. Number 12, the one Reborn. On my very first playthrough, this boss gave me quite some trouble. This absolutely disgusting conglomeration of bones, flesh, and limbs with a big health bar has 6 Bell Maidens assisting him, 3 on the high ground of each side of the arena, that heal him with their purple orbs and deal damage to the player using fireballs. I died to this guy 22 times in my first playthrough. Despite being weak to both magic and fire, I had to completely stop multiple times to get more healing supplies. The reason I struggle with this guy so much is because I didn't actually know you could kill the Bell Maidens. So there I would be, wailing on the one Reborn's hanging, leaking, meatball looking thing, and I'd just be getting pelted by these fireballs from each side of the arena. You typically don't have the best rally potential at this point in the game unless you popped fire, a bolt paper, and a beast blood pellet. This is probably the only boss in Bloodborne that I personally would say is poorly designed. Something like the Tower Knight from Demon's Souls, which is a similar idea to this fight, is much better in terms of the design due to the Tower Knight not being able to actually damage you while you're on top killing the ads, and it's just a very well designed boss in every other way. The reason I say the one Reborn is poorly designed is because it has this skeleton on top of one of the sides of its body. The skeleton frequently raises the roof and conjures this red orb above him. This means he's about to attack. The problem is, you're probably going to be locked onto the boss, and even if you're not, it's very difficult and inconvenient to unlock or look at what he's doing. If you don't know what he's doing, you'll likely encounter the same problem I had, which is suddenly getting one shot and caught off guard by his acid vomit or corpse blood cloud attack. But just kill the maidens, go on all out, unlock, and attack until he's dead. Easy. The largest boss in Bloodborne remains the only boss that I personally have not ever died to one time, but that does not by any means mean that he's easy. After seeing these guys lying around YHARNAM and Yahar'gul, it's exhilarating and surprising to see one of these guys drop right in front of you in this beautiful looking arena. When you first start attacking this guy, you'll notice that attacking anything but the arms or the head deals absolutely pitiful damage. This is what makes this fight quite interesting, and why there is multiple strategies that you can utilize to take this guy down. His lanky posture means that he has insane reach, and extremely heavy attacks. However, first phase is actually more simple than it may seem. There are multiple attacks that leave his head completely vulnerable, so much so that you can deal enough damage to actually pull off a visceral attack and deal plenty of damage to him, providing your weapon has been upgraded at this point in the game, which it probably has. The strategy I use, which is the one I would recommend, is to bait his rapid swinging attack and punish once he completes his final stomp onto the ground by walking between his hands and hitting his head. This, as I said, can open the potential for a visceral attack, which will deal massive damage. The only thing AMYGDALA can do in phase 1 that could be potentially dangerous is jump in the air and land on the player. The trick to this attack is to run where his tail was before he jumps, since his head will always be there when he lands on the ground, giving you another window to punish him. In phase 2, however, AMYGDALA magically acquires 2 new arms that he holds in combat. These are very dangerous as they can make the previous strategy extremely difficult to pull off. They substantially increase the AoE of Amygdala's attacks, meaning you must keep a serious distance from him in order to not get hit. His attacks are somewhat similar though. He still uses the slam attack, that means he's easily punishable. But this is made much tougher because you gotta keep a distance from him because of his new arms. Combine insane reach and insane damage and you've got yourself one tough cookie. But as I said, keep punishing him for using his slam attack and I'm certain you'll knock this guy out in no time. Sat on his frozen throne on top of an abandoned Canehurst castle, Martyr LOGARIUS is a challenging boss that should not be underestimated. For the most part, he only uses magic attacks in phase 1. The 2 main attacks are the ones in which he sends out 5 red skulls that will all track the player. They don't do an incredible amount of damage individually, but if you get hit by more than one, prepare to back up and heal. His other attack is one where he sends out one skull that explodes into a big skull when he swings his staff again. Since these are his only attacks for phase 1, it's best to stay as aggressive as you possibly can so that his magic has to turn as much as possible to even hit you. Once you've got him down to 50 HP, however, he becomes much tougher. He starts utilizing his melee attacks much more often now, and oh my god do they hurt. They're rapid, not very well telegraphed, and they hurt like a truck. Get caught up in his melee combo and be ready to back up and heal. LOGARIUS will also put down a sword replica in the ground and summon a tornado of magic swords that will quickly and randomly shoot out individually towards the player. When he does this, do everything in your power to shoot or destroy it. Unless you're a god, you cannot really afford to watch what LOGARIUS is doing while also making sure you dodge the swords when they get shot out. One weakness LOGARIUS does develop in his second phase is the ability to frequently parry and backstab him, which allows visual attacks that will seriously damage him. Stay aggressive, destroy that goddamn sword, and you'll take this guy's throne in no time. Number 9, the Shadows of YHARNAM. The first gank you encounter in Bloodborne is also the most well-designed and challenging one. 3 shadows appear from the mist, one with a mace and a candle, one with a black katana, and one with an inflamed katana. The one with the mace has the least health of the 3 and only has one particularly dangerous attack, which is where he leans backwards and spews out fire like a flamethrower. The shadow with the black katana is the most aggressive and fastest, frequently using long and powerful combos to attack the player, and the inflamed shadow is like a mixture of the two. He's not as aggressive but can deal serious fire damage with his sword. When one shadow reaches about 20% HP, they will all stagger and grow snakes out of their heads and gain access to a plethora of new dangerous moves. The most dangerous being in one in which they crouch and conjure a red circle beneath them. This attack summons giant snakes that deal absolutely devastating damage and are very difficult to dodge. And the shadows with the katanas can thrust forward and their attack can reach to what feels like the other side of the arena. Despite being a gank, this fight is very fair and teaches you to use the environment to your advantage so you can kite the shadows and deal damage to only one specifically and take them down individually. Deal with them one at a time, use your environment to your advantage, and feel accomplished that you just conquered the hardest gank in Bloodborne. Number 8, Rom, the Vacuous Spider. I suck at this fight. I still do, always have, and think I always will. In what's potentially the most beautiful boss arena in Bloodborne, Rom is a boss that has 2 strategies that can be used to defeat her. You can take the fight slowly and kill all the spider minions, then unlock and go all out on Rom once they're all dead. Or you can do the dice roll strategy of just completely YOLOing and just wail on her. This is the strategy that I've always used, and it's only ever worked out for me once. Honestly, ranking this boss was pretty difficult, since now that I've used the strategy of killing all the spiders multiple times, she's become a lot less troublesome for me in repeat playthroughs. The first wave of spiders are the easiest to take out due to Rom not having any attacks, so you can just kill the spiders without worrying about what she's actually doing. Once they're all dead, this is the best opportunity for you to obliterate her health bar. She'll just sit there and let you hit her until she reaches about 50% HP, while she'll prepare for a teleport. Now that she's teleported, you have to kill the spiders again, but this time Rom has access to a few attacks that will make this process extremely lengthy and dangerous. As well as avoiding damage from the small spiders, you must look out for when Rom lifts the front end of her body, because she's summoning blue rock asteroids that will kill you even if you have a lot of bitch vigor. But if you take it slowly, stay patient, and deal with the ads, Rom will be dead pretty quickly. Number 7, Lady Maria of the Astral Clocktower. One of the most fun and thrilling fights in Bloodborne is also a very difficult one. Similar to Sister Fried and Father Ariandel in Dark Souls 3, Maria has 3 phases. Her first phase is a very good introduction to the fight and is a great preparation for the ones upcoming. At around 65% HP, Maria will commit seppuku and gain access to blood attacks that increase her damage and range. At 30%, she'll float and gain access to fire attacks that further increase her range and the damage she deals, and she gains a couple of new attacks after both of the transformations. Lady Maria can be parried, as of all of the hunters in Bloodborne can, but it's no easy task to pull them off, and especially at later phases, it's too much of a risk. If you miss it, you're gonna either die or start panicking to heal from a crazy amount of damage you just took. The only tip I have for this fight is to never dodge backwards, as her range can be pretty deceiving. Make sure you always have as close to full health as possible and rally any opportunity you get. Keep doing this and get some free damage during the transformation animations, but always mark her words.
A corpse should be left well alone.
The night Gehrman joins the hunt is the night you should be worried about. He lands himself at the number 6 spot on my list and is the final boss of Bloodborne, barring the moon presence. At first, he wishes to grant you, the hunter, mercy. He wants to kill you so that you can wake up and forget all about the hunter's dream. He's a good guy, and yet you refuse to cooperate with him. This old man gets out of his chair and equips the burial blade in preparation to do things the hard way for the sake of himself and the moon presence. And oh lord, is this fight difficult. He uses his scythe to effectively hook the player towards him so he can deal damage. He charges his weapon behind his back before flinging the player upwards to deal even more damage. He flies into the air and literally summons a fucking tornado to kill you. And when he reaches phase 2, he splits his scythe up into a smaller one-handed blade. He has a combo that will stun lock you and deal a ton of damage. The amount of damage that Gehrman can output is monstrous and extremely intimidating. I had to use 2 blood vials every time I got hit by his flinging attack, meaning I ran out very quickly. And since your blood vial count persists through to the moon presence fight, if you do decide to kill it, this becomes even more of an inconvenience. It feels like whenever Gehrman is about to attack you, there's a chance that he's going to do it soon and there's a chance he's going to do it later. You have to compensate for this by really paying attention to when he leans back to lunge at you. A fantastic final boss has just the perfect amount of difficulty to make completing the game feel like a true accomplishment. And for that, Gehrman, I thank you. Number 5, EBRIETAS, Daughter of the Cosmos. This boss cannot let me complete a playthrough without slaughtering me at least 2 or 3 times. EBRIETAS has no intention of killing you. She sleeps soundly underneath the city and doesn't even attack you unless you hit her multiple times. When this monster awakens, be ready for a very tough fight. EBRIETAS deals massive damage with her long tentacles, attacks frequently on long swipes that have a big AoE, slams her gelatinous head onto the ground to destroy your health bar, and levitates around the arena so that you cannot camp her back end, and all of this is in phase 1. You really have to try and follow the golden rule of Soulsborne and stick to that back end in the V of her mush, if you know what I mean, and once again take full advantage of any resource available to you. Despite having some exploitable strategies to take her out, the amount of damage she deals outweighs this. If you enter this fight with Bolt Paper and a Beast Blood Pellet, you can stagger EBRIETAS a lot and deal massive damage on her head, which could lead to another stagger immediately afterwards where you can deal even more damage to her head. Catch this is that if you cannot get into the right position to melt her immediately, she makes it very challenging and inconvenient to do so while also throwing any damage she can in your direction. She hovers to her left or right in phase 1 to make sure you don't even get behind her. In phase 2, she will shake her head around and charge at you like Ludwig, which can one-shot you unless you have a lot of bitch figure. She also gains access to a version of a Call Beyond that is similar to the one the Living Failures have that is insanely difficult to dodge and will most likely one-shot you if you get hit by one of the volleys. But keep at it, stay in good position, punish her head upon staggers, and you can slay this Daughter of the Cosmos in no time. Number 4, Father Gascoigne, the Hunter. The first compulsory boss of Bloodborne is certainly one of the most difficult to defeat. He made too many people quit this amazing game due to his insane difficulty. Gascoigne teaches you to use your environment to your advantage, learn to parry, and adapt to Bloodborne's aggressive playstyle. Miyazaki intended for him to be one of the hardest bosses in the game for this reason. The game basically builds a wall out of this hunter and tells you, if you can't pass it, you can't continue. He killed me 8 times on my first playthrough because I had to adapt to the playstyle. His first phase has him using his hunter axe and blunderbuss. He uses short but dangerous combos before dodging and staggering, possibly parrying the player with his blunderbuss that can deal some serious damage if you're too close to him. These patterns can be pretty unpredictable and hard to read sometimes and can catch you off guard if you aren't paying very close attention. Eventually he will two-hand his hunter axe and gain access to even more combos that are harder to parry and potentially kill you if you get stun locked into one of them. And just as you think it's almost over, just as you think Gascoigne's about to die, he turns into Wolverine on crack. This phase is extremely intimidating, incredibly aggressive, deals a devastating amount of damage, and will even destroy the gravestones if he attacks them, meaning everything you learn in phase 1 about using the environment gets thrown out of the window. This phase can also be parried, which is a useful skill to learn, and Gascoigne absolutely hates Molotov cocktails, so make sure to keep all of the ones you found throughout YHARNAM to make this fight easier. Keep at it though, Gascoigne will be dead very soon. Ah, my true mentor. My guiding moonlight. Ludwig the Accursed and Ludwig the Holy Blade lands himself at a top 3 spot. This boss is insanely difficult. This disgusting monstrosity of a creature is incredibly aggressive, unpredictable, has 2 long and equally challenging phases, can get to the other side of the arena with his stupid charge attack, can breathe a blizzard out of his gross eye orifice tube thing, can re the fuck out and get into a stomping tantrum that's almost impossible to dodge if you get caught in it, and he hits like an absolute truck. His first phase has him attacking the player using his claws and his legs in rapid succession. With tiny windows to attack and heal, you have to make sure you have the best positioning and near perfect dodge timing to overcome this beast. His swipe attacks that he does with his claws have a huge AoE radius and punishes people that dodge when the attack starts rather than it lands, like me. This attack does a very scary amount of damage, and it's very likely you'll die if you can't heal. Once you get through this phase, the Moonlight Sword makes a phenomenal and exhilarating appearance, and Ludwig takes it into combat. With some absolutely fantastic score, this phase is thrilling and extremely challenging, just like his first phase. Ludwig will leave you very small windows to attack and heal, swinging the Moonlight Sword and sending waves of moonlight towards you. He has an AoE attack that'll one-shot you and make it very difficult to dodge unless you're in his ass already. And I cannot tell you how many times that attack killed me when I was killing him on my Blood Tinge build. My only tip for this fight is to stick to his left side and be as aggressive as you possibly can, while also making sure you have enough stamina to dodge any attacks that come your way. This fight is very tough because you don't have very much breathing room to do much, and the more you wait to deal damage to him, the harder the fight is because you have to dodge even more. Ludwig, I hate you. I don't really. You're a fun fight, but my god, you're difficult. The second hardest boss in Bloodborne and the one at our number 2 spot is Laurence, the first Vicar. I think a lot of you guessed this one before you even clicked on the video. The only optional boss of the Old Hunters DLC is unfortunately, at least to me, an infuriating fight that honestly feels like an unfair one than a fair one. Laurence is a reskinned cleric beast that is scaled for endgame and has fire damage on top of just normal attacks. At first he seems quite simple. Some slow and well telegraphed attacks means that they're easy to dodge and easily punishable due to long recovery times, and for the most part you can just stick to his back end and punish him severely for his long attacks. You can even stagger him. Although they're short, you can still deal a nice amount of damage, or if you can't, reposition yourself and try to do it again. But the further you get into the fight, the more you realize this boss is the complete opposite of easy. His attacks often has devastating fire effects that can one-shot you even with a lot of vigor. He has long sweeping attacks, much like EBRIETAS and Ludwig, that each have insane AoE and some questionable hitboxes. One overlooked thing that makes Laurence's fight much more difficult is the 200% counter damage that you take if you fail a dodge in Bloodborne. His attacks already hurt like a bus, and double that damage, you're gonna die. You can stick to his back end for the first phase until he gives you the middle finger and removes it from himself. The second phase is a nightmare to deal with and amplifies everything that he has in phase 1 and makes it even more of an inconvenience for you. His only way of moving is by crawling, and every time his hand hits the ground he sends out this calamitous fire attack that will stun lock you if you get unlucky and most likely kill you. His one suspiciously girthy arm reaches to what feels like the other side of the arena and will probably kill you as well. Not to mention the location where his booty used to be now egregiously leaks lava that will damage and stun you if you walk into it. Try and find a good position, punish where you can, and be happy that you just killed the second hardest boss in Bloodborne, in my opinion. And at number 1 on our list, and the boss that takes the throne as the hardest boss and my personal favorite boss in Bloodborne, Orphan of Kos. Yeah, I think you guessed it, and Laurence before the video even started. In a cutscene that comes close to the one Reborn's in terms of grotesque grossness, the Orphan of Kos is a lanky skeleton looking thing that comes out of Kos holding its placenta. Orphan has some of the highest aggression in all of Soulsborne, combined with some of the highest DPS, a massive move pool, and the most obnoxious screeching of anything encountered up until this point. He has a massive health pool that even plus 10 weapons in bolt paper struggle to dissipate. He relentlessly swings his weapon around him, dealing an overwhelming amount of damage and leaving what feels like no time at all to back up and heal. He frequently throws his juices at you to deal damage, shoves it in the ground to unleash a hard-hitting, deceptively large AoE attack. He leaps backwards and flings his weapon at you, lifts it above his head to slap it into your face, and he does all of this in such quick succession that healing feels like an impossible gamble. Once you've torn through his first phase, his lanky orphan goes absolutely crazy and gains access to even more attacks. He will sit there and scream to the heavens to summon lightning waves from the shore that head in every direction and will nearly one-shot you if you get hit by them. He will forcefully slam his weapon into the ground multiple times in a crazy frenzy, leap into the air God of War Valkyrie style before slamming unpredictably onto the player, and as always, this is done crazily fast. In phase 2, he has even more ways of getting around his arena much more quickly, which makes healing feel like even more of a gamble. My tip for this fight is to stay as aggressive as he is. A lot of Orphan's attacks just go outside of his body, and there's enough gap for you to stand right next to him so you can hit him without taking any damage from his placenta and dodge towards him a lot, especially when he flings his weapon at you as he jumps backwards. There are a few attacks where this doesn't work, but as with most things in Bloodborne, you will learn to adapt to this soon enough. In his second phase transformation, try to deal as much damage as you can before flinging into the ocean so that the lightning waves that come from the shore are easy to dodge. A final boss to the Old Hunters DLC is certainly an insanely difficult challenge and a completely fair fight as well. But with perseverance and patience, you can slay the Orphan of Kos and feel so good that you just killed what might be the hardest boss in the entire Soulsborne series. Well everybody, that concludes my Bloodborne boss rankings. I hope you enjoyed them. If you find any of these rankings to be unfair or you disagree with my opinion, please feel free to post yours in the comments below. I'm always interested to see what other people thought of these Bloodborne bosses as well. Check out my Twitch for frequent live streams and go ahead and drop a follow while you're at it. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.